G'day and welcome to the Grow a Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Trewin. Each week, we speak with an owner who has grown a business with 5 to 30 team members to something bigger. Diving into their numbers and unearthing the pain they've experienced, we explore what they did to overcome each barrier and what they would do differently from day one. Let's get into it. Welcome, everyone. Today I'm interviewing Stephen Johnston from GoodJob. He's based in Birmingham, Alabama, United States, not the UK. Thanks for your time today, Stephen.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Let's start with how we know each other. Laura from the Business Growers put us in touch. Thought you might be a great guest to come on.
Laura is one of my favorite people in the world. And just to provide context of, a theme that's been very important in my life is keeping relationships. Well, just for the record, Laura was my babysitter when she was in college and we developed a very strong relationship. And so she was so good at her job. I hired her after college and she worked for me for about 7 or 8 years as a professional. And then, of course, started her own business and is doing phenomenally well. So I have a long-standing relationship with Laura.
That's great. Well, tell our audience a bit about your business, what it does and how it makes money.
Yeah, so GoodJob is a software platform that predicts if people will be successful in the job role based on work traits and behaviors. And we built this software because I was trying to solve what I call the 50% problem. And what the 50% problem is, most of the world hires correctly 50% plus or minus of the time. And when I started thinking about it, I was like, why in today's world of technology and information, why do we only get it right 50% of the time? And why are we okay with that statistic? And so did a lot of research, tried to figure out what the root of the problem was. And what I determined was that, people are not hiring on traits and behaviors. They're hiring more on skills and qualifications. Both are important. And so what we did was we made a software product where it makes it very simple in 10 minutes or less to determine if someone has the right traits and behaviors to be successful in a job.
That's terrific and very much needed. Have you read Top Grading by Dr. Bradford Smart?
Yes, I have. Actually, it's a great book, and the theory of top grading is, a good theory. The problem with the way people utilize tools to assess people and to look at people is they often self-select who they assess.
There's too many biases there. Right?
That's right. There's too many biases. And so we designed a process to eliminate all of the biases in hiring. And that's why actually we don't charge for our assessment tool that we use, because I never want somebody to not assess someone because it costs more money. So it's unlimited use with our product because we want them to give everyone a chance of being successful in a particular job. And our technology will determine who's successful and who's not without knowing a lot of demographics or other information about the person.
Yeah, great. We'll come to the business model in a minute, but just want to touch back on the Top Grading book where Dr. Smart talks about, I know the book's 25 years or so old, and it's pretty heavy reading. The first edition was over 600 pages. Thankfully, I read the second edition, cut it in half by then, but it's still heavy reading. But one of the stats in there from their data was that, and he did a lot of work at GE with Jack Welch. He, started putting all his tools together basically in the 70s and 80s. But he says from their data that only 25% of hires are A players. So it actually could be worse than that 50% that you guys are saying.
Yeah, well, I think when you look at, who my A players are, I think there's two things you have to look at. And this is what our model does. How well do they fit in our company and how well do they perform their job? And if you know those two things, you can then build a predictive behavioral model so that instead of only having 25% of people that you hire be A players, you can increase that probability to 50 or 60%.
Yeah.
I mean, we know. And so I think the book and the concept and everything around top grading is 100% accurate and is right on. Let's get the best people in the best job, and the people who can't perform the job, let's move them out of the organization. That's all great. The question is, how do you do it in a way that is simple, easy, and resonates with the current workforce of today? And that's what GoodJob really started doing. So
Yep. And it's a huge problem and cost, as Dr. Smart talks about in the book. A mishire can cost anywhere from 5 to 27 times. But I'm sure you would know yourself, because you've got both a corporate background, but also other businesses, that the chasm between an A and a B player is just massive. So investing the time and using the right tools to do recruitment well pays huge dividends, as you would well know.
Absolutely. And I think those costs are right on. I mean, we all know the cost of a bad hire. I mean, it's almost like immeasurable because you don't know what you missed. And when you have somebody, and I've made bad hires. That's partly why I started this company, is to help, people like me and other business owners, not consistently make the same mistakes. So here's one of the things I learned, and I'll speak about me. So when I was building the technology, I asked my advisors that helped me, the people who did the research on the trait behavioral analysis and all those things. I said, "Hey, why do you think I'm a bad hire of people?" And he said, "Well, I know why you're a bad hire of people." And I said, "Oh, well, tell me. I'd like to know." He said, "Well, Stephen, you have three dominant behaviors. You're an achiever, a founder, and a servant leader. Achiever, self-explanatory. You'll run through the brick wall to make things happen. Founder, you don't need a lot of rules. You can create your own agenda. You're goal driven. You don't need somebody to tell you what to do every day. You'll go make it happen. A servant leader, you want to believe the best in people. So when you interview someone, Stephen, if they tell you they can do something, you want to believe that they're being honest and truthful, and you want to help them be successful with what they say they can do. And you just don't ask the hard questions. And so he said, your servant leader behavior gets in the way of you being a good hire of people. And so, hey, I learned something. And so what we do is try to take all that guesswork out so that a person's human bias and what they do doesn't get in the way of them making a really good decision.
Yeah, perfect. That sounds great. Just maybe go back to the business model. So if you don't charge for the assessment, how do you guys make money?
Yeah, we charge a fixed fee per month based on the size of the company that we're serving. So it's typically about $2 per employee per month. So if you think about a 500-person organization, that current employees, okay, they would pay $1,000 a month and they would have unlimited assessments, both for their internal use and also for anybody they wanted to hire. And so we just base the pricing on the current employee count.
How did you start out?
We started out with a blank sheet of paper, and I had a person that actually got me involved in this business who said he had made an investment in a company. It was a really good company, and they were really more on the recruiting space, but the founder of that company had some really good ideas about wanting to change the way the recruiting process worked. We ultimately didn't pursue most of those ideas, but because I got interested in how people hire and retain people, I started looking at what the real problem was with the business and discovered through some research the missing gap was trait behavioral analysis. And once I was told or taught that that's really the missing piece of the equation and started to believe that, immediately shifted my brain to think, how can we solve this problem? And so that's how GoodJob started, and with a real focus, literally with a blank sheet of paper, we bought some intellectual property from a group of Harvard professors that had been helping Fortune 500 companies hire better people for about, I want to say 35, 36 years. And so it was a consulting business. I bought all the assets, or not the assets, I bought all the intellectual property associated with their know-how and hired them to help me turn their consulting practice, which was only available to very, very, top companies because it was expensive, to help me turn it into a SaaS platform that anybody in the world could use. And that's how we got started.
Right. And what year did you start GoodJob?
2019, right before COVID.
Great timing. How old were you then? That was 5 years ago.
So it's 5 years ago. And so what was I, 40, I'm 53, so 47 years old. So, and this is my, my third company, second tech business. And in this business, I wanted to do something that wasn't just like, hey, this is a really cool company, cool technology. I truly believe that everybody we help get hired using our process and methodology, you're helping that person become a better person, a better neighbor, better friend, better spouse. And so we really do believe we're doing something meaningful relative to the overall workforce and to companies. We're helping them hire people that are going to be more successful. And we all know, success leads to happiness in life. And so I really do feel like we're impacting the world with what we do. So it's not just about, let's build a really cool SaaS company. Let's build a SaaS company that's really going to make a difference in the world.
Yeah, yeah, totally agree. Maybe go back to right back to the start. If you went to university, corporate job, and maybe the catalyst for jumping and starting your first business, and run us through those.
Yes. Yeah. So I was actually a banking and finance major in college. I went to work in an investment banking firm out of college. I spent about 7 years doing that from 1993 until 2000. And for those of us that can remember those times, it was one of the greatest economic booms in the history of the world. It was just a fantastic time period to be in anything related to growth or financing, and I really enjoyed that. It was a lot of fun. I was in one of those jobs where it was normal to go to business school after 2 years, but the business was growing so great. They kept, doubling my pay every 2 years or every year that I'd tell them I was going to leave. They'd give me more money or give me more responsibility. And so I never actually ended up leaving and doing the business school. I ended up doing an executive program down the way, but it was just a great fast paced environment and I enjoyed it. In 2000, I ended up making the hop. I got approached by a friend of a friend who was starting a new company based in my home state of Mississippi. And I really believed in what he was doing. It was around the wireless smart metering space. And I decided, you know what, I'm going to go give the entrepreneurial thing a try. And so that's how I co-found that company. It was called Smart Sync, became the CEO 4 years later at the age of 34, and ended up selling that company in 2012 to a public company, a partner slash competitor of mine, great company, and ended up working for them for 3 years after that. So from 2000 to 2014, 15 timeframe, I was in the wireless smart metering space, building new technology to help solve a really big problem in the world's smart grid.
Picking up a bit of a theme here, Stephen. So you started that or co-founded that first business just before the dot-com crash, and then this one just before COVID.
Incredible timing. You're correct with your dates. And I will tell you, in 2001, which, seems like a really long time ago, we, you know, this was a heavy capital intensive business and we couldn't raise any money. And I was in charge of raising all the venture capital. So I had secured a term sheet for a $23 million funding round, or Series B, and the bank or the investor literally could have changed the terms and offered me anything they wanted to do. But this was a great first lesson in life about who you work with. This capital provider called me at the time. It was a fund that had been backed by JP Morgan. He called me and said, I'm going to do the deal that we agreed to despite the market conditions. And which, I mean, and he taught me, he became a great friend of mine and a great mentor and colleague. And, it was one of those situations where like I said, he could have taken advantage of the situation, but he stuck to his word. And just a great life lesson of how you should treat people.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was the founder of 1-800 Dentist or Dental. I think he had a similar story. They were pivoting, obviously, with less people calling 1-800 numbers to an online thing, and they just stuffed it up. And he did. And after a week of stress, he finally fessed up to his shareholders, who were good investors, thinking, he was going to get hammered and caned from them. And all of them just turned around and said, how can we help? Do you need more money to get through this pivot? So it's, as I like to say, which is topical for what your business does, that I believe recruitment's the most important thing a manager does. And for an owner, recruiting those shareholders on your cap table is one of the most important things you do as well. Because if you get arseholes on that cap table, or they're just not genuine about supporting you, then it's a whole different ballgame.
You're 100% correct. I agree wholeheartedly. Who you surround yourself with is almost more important than how much money you take in,
Yep.
because you want to work with people that are going to help your business. I have a lot of experience in venture capital. I've raised I think $120 million of venture capital and throughout my career. Um, you want to make sure that the investors line up with your really your, how you think about the world. How, you want investors that can help the company be successful. People always say you want a value added investors. Well, of course you do. But I think every business, the definition of what a value added investor is very different. And so I think it's important to do that research on the front end, call their current, I tell people, I said, hey, if somebody wants to invest in your business as a VC, they'd be happy to share with you a reference list, and make sure you make those calls and ask those companies the hard questions, because you want a good match.
And maybe take us through what you're up to between 2015 and when you started GoodJob in 2019. You had another business in there?
Yeah, I did. So after I sold my first company, it was a situation where I had a very stringent non-compete. So I couldn't compete in the business that I actually had known so much of for the past several years. And I got approached by I'd met a friend through a friend, and I'd read a book that I really was meaningful to me. It's called Same Kind of Different as Me. And through a friend of a friend, I actually met the author of that book, who was trying to turn his book into a motion picture, into a movie. And he asked me if I could help him. And because I just finished my work agreement and I really didn't know what I was going to do next in my life, I spent the next 3 years of my life producing a film that had a very important human message to it. And so, I was the lead investor. I was also worked every day and on the film. And it's a great movie. It's called Same Kind of Different as Me. It's out on Amazon Prime and Paramount Plus. But the trick of that, when people think about movies, a movie is a lot like a business, except the time. I tell people it's about a 20-year lifespan of a business compressed into 3 years. You have to, build a product, the script. You have to make the product, production. You have to refine the product, post-production, put it together. You have to market it, you have to sell it, and then it's over. And so it was fast-paced. It was fun. I got to work with some of the most amazing people I've ever met in my life in an industry I had no knowledge of or never even wanted to be in. We had 4 Academy Award winners in our film. They were all fantastic. But the reason I did it was because I felt like the story needed to be told. And it's a story that's heavy on faith, hope, love, friendship, forgiveness. It's just a great human interest story, and really tells a story about a man named Denver Moore, a homeless guy that lived on the streets forever. And long story short, ended up making a real big difference in the world. And so I was just happy to be a part of that and to have the opportunity to do that. And so when I finished the movie business, my wife said, hey, you may want to think about, getting a real job again. And so I started thinking about what I wanted to do next. And that's how I started GoodJob.
Well, do you have some key numbers you can share to illustrate the growth of GoodJob over the last 5 years?
Yeah. So it's been a interesting ride. The actual financial performance has been less than I'd hoped, but we're growing now. So what I mean by that is we started in 2019. And remember, I told you we started with a blank sheet of paper. We literally had, nothing from a software standpoint. And then COVID hit. So it took 3 years to build the product to the standard that I felt like it needed to be before it could be a commercial product. And so that amount of time, and a lot of that was due to COVID, because my developers were in India, and they all got sent home, and many of them didn't have internet service for about a year. So it was a very tough time. I was very fortunate that I had a great group of investors that loved the story. So I raised early on about $3.6 million to build the product and get the product to market. And then ultimately ended up raising a little more on top of that, because it took a little more than we had planned. As we discussed earlier in the day, it always takes more money and more time. So
Yeah,
we launched the
I told
product.
you. Sorry, I told you about the rule, the 4x2 rule, which I've mentioned a couple times on the cast. Just for the audience, I heard a VC say this in London when I was living there. He says to entrepreneurs, it's going to take 4 times as long or cost twice as much, or take twice as long and cost 4 times as much. The only difference is you get to choose which path. Because before we hit record, we were talking about how bloody hard it is to start, let alone grow a small business.
It is. So just from a context of size standpoint, so we launched the business about 2 years ago in terms of a commercial product. And so we'll be under, we finished last year under $1 million ARR. My goal was actually to be at about 1.5 million last year, maybe even 2 million on an optimistic goal. But it was a tough market. Last year, 2023 was one of the hardest years I've ever sold technology in. And so candidly, the fact that we're still kicking with missing our numbers, our targeted numbers for last year is, it reminds me of one of the traits that's really important for an entrepreneur. It's called resiliency. And so, so it was a tough year. So, we'll be slightly less than 1 million. My goal this year is to get to that 2 million plus in ARR by the end of the year. And then, I think once we get market acceptance on our product and have enough referral customers, then I think the business will grow at a much more rapid pace. But here's the trick, and I learned this with this business. We're solving a retention and performance problem. That is measured it takes about 18 to 24 months to really measure how you're impacting that organization. It's not a quick fix. It's a cultural decision. We're going to hire people this way, and it just takes some time to prove out. So I don't have any raving lunatics yet, because we're just getting into that year cycle with some of them, but I'm real close to having the raving lunatics that will support our product.
Yeah, that's great. And are you tracking that with your customers, like that kind of return they're getting? Is that something that you're able to? And then
We are.
Yeah, great. And you'll eventually
the system. Yes. So we work with them. I mean, we don't have all the analytics built inside the system. So some of them we have to run outside the system, but depending on what system they're using to track their employment and their hires and all those things. But we like to, if we tell someone that they're a 92% probability of being successful in the job that you're hiring based on our algorithm and our data, we like to measure that person's performance after 6 months and 12 months to determine, did you think they were 92%?
Yep.
Are they still with your company? After 18 months to 24 months, we sort of stop tracking whether or not, because we believe that if they're keeping that person, that person is probably, after 18 to 24 months, then we probably help them make a really good hire.
Yeah, absolutely. And the stat, I can't remember which book I got it from, something like 42% of hires leave a business within 3 years. Either they're exited, push out the door, or they decide it's just especially for a small business, like it takes the owner and the management teams, takes their focus and energy away from growth to just managing B players or C players or arseholes. And it's just, I'm going on a rant now. It's such an important.
No.
Yeah.
Well, listen, it's so we try to simplify that whole process. So, when you actually grade people, like, are they an A, B, C, D? A lot of times, human bias can enter into that grading system as well, right? Because somebody's they don't want to admit that they've hired, C players. And so there's a lot of stuff. So what we do is we use a 1 to 7 scale. And so what we do is we send out our assessment into the workplace. And per role, we ask the hiring manager or HR, the appropriate person, and it can correlate to their performance review, to rate every employee on a scale of 1 to 7. And this gets back to the A to C player. So what's interesting is on a scale of 1 to 7, 5 is the point of indifference. And so 6 and 7s are actually either A players or people that you think can be A players. 5 is your point of indifference. A 4 is really a 1. Does that make sense? Because if you rate somebody a 4, you're just being nice. You know, so they're not someone that that you probably should keep in your company. But so we've developed this simplistic process. Just hey, just tell us if they're on a scale of 1 to 7, where do you see them? And so they just fill that out, and then the system actually builds the algorithm for predictive behavior.
Yeah, great. I'm definitely going to check out your assessment tool. Yeah. And assume, especially because you're a SaaS business, it's you've got a good handle on LTV and CAC, your lifetime value, and your customer acquisition costs in that ratio.
Well, I'm learning, right? I mean, because we've been in the market for like 2 years, I feel like in our type of product, it takes a minute to be able to get real data on those. I mean, we've learned a lot. Like I've learned some things that don't work. Cold emails to my potential target audience doesn't work. It's for whatever reason. People we found that to be an unsuccessful way to reach people. And so it's calculating an acquisition cost can be kind of hard depending on the methods that you use. Right now, we have people that are calling on people, and so it's a pretty high acquisition cost at the moment. When we get into referrals and things like that, and we get into we have some partnerships that are really helping us be successful. Like I'll give you SHRM, the Society of Human Resource Management, is an investor and a partner in my company. And so they've helped us reach the 325,000 population of SHRM members. And that acquisition cost for SHRM clients is really, really low.
Yeah.
Right. Because we're spending no time prospecting or doing any of those things. And they are just literally saying, hey, you should look at this company. And so, closing them. So we're still learning. We're still building that model. So I don't really have great data to say this is our acquisition cost per client. I would, it's just we're not quite there yet.
Yep. No worries. Just to close out the key numbers, what number of full-time equivalent team members did you start with, and where are you at now?
Yeah, so we started theoretically, I guess because we worked with this other company first. So I'm going to say 2 or 3 is kind of how we started, and then we brought on once we got into the development phase, we brought on a heavy set of developers. And so we probably had 25, 30 developers at one time working on our product, but they weren't employees. They were, kind of dedicated resources with a outsourced party. Once the product was built, I like to have most of my thought leadership around product development internal. And so we were able to eliminate all of our outside resources. So today we do all of our development internally now. I have a development team of about, I think there's 7 or 8 developers that build our product, a support team of 3 or 4 people. I think in total we're about 12. We're 12 employees today.
Yeah.
So
fantastic. That's great. When was the moment you felt like you had succeeded?
Well, my goal with this business is to impact a whole lot of people, millions of people. And I don't think we're there yet. So once I saw the product work in with a really big company. So Continental Tire, for example, is a big client of ours. They're a worldwide company. When I saw the product work in their environment, it made me feel really good. Right. And when I saw like we have some other really big clients, and when I saw the light go off in their head that, oh, wow, this is going to really save us a lot of time. I can see how this is a more fair process for hiring people than what we're currently doing today. So just to get that feedback, that was relatively, about a year or 2 right after the product was released, just to see the impact it would have. So, I feel like we have a great product. I feel like, the company has been successful in building the vision that we had. Now we're growing, and we're in that part of the world that I don't know if I'll ever be satisfied with the number of customers or the people that we are trying to impact. So
what does success look like to you?
I think you have to be financially independent to be successful. So when I don't have to raise money or have, outside capital fund my business, that's an element of success where I feel really good about what I've created. And so we're still not profitable. And to me, the first hurdle of, man, we're being successful is when we don't need to rely on outside capital.
Number one thing you'd recommend to marketing a fast growing business?
My father taught me something at a very young age, and it stuck with me for my entire working career. And he taught me that nothing happens until you sell something.
Mm-hmm.
So you can build the best technology in the world. You can have the greatest marketing plans in the world. You can have all this kind of stuff. But until you have sold your product, you're you're just an idea. And so my best advice to any entrepreneur, anybody starting a business, is sell your product as fast as you can, because you'll learn. You may fail. Honestly, you may fail to deliver. It's possible. Hopefully you won't, but you'll learn and you'll be a better company. And so sell, sell, sell.
Yeah, it's the whole beta versus VHS video, you know, story from the late 70s and 80s. Betamax was a better technology, but it was a closed system from Sony and poorly marketed, whereas VHS just obviously took off and Beta eventually died.
Absolutely. My favorite, as it relates to technology development, so my favorite advice or input I give people, even in our team today: perfect is the enemy of great.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And great is good enough.
Yep.
So let's not try to be perfect. Let's just be great.
And you've mentioned funding, so you've got investors on board. Anything else on funding?
Yeah. So for this business, we've raised, it's public. I think I put it out there. So we've raised, approximately $10 million, maybe 10 to $11 million in total venture capital. And so we've been able to secure capital to grow the business. We have in this, it's interesting. In this business, I actually have no VCs. It's all family offices. And actually, I think that's a little bit of sign of the times. I think there's more sources of capital out there to grow companies. And I was really wanted to focus when I took an institutional round of funding. I really wanted to focus on that capital provider that could help me scale the business and grow the business, as opposed to create the product. And so I chose to use family offices to fund the R&D and the initial product development, because I knew what we wanted to build. I had a very clear vision about what I wanted to build, and my team helped me, obviously with that. I've got a great chief product officer. She's phenomenal. So the next set of growth capital I wanted was this set of capital this growth capital that helps you scale the business. But in that process, I actually ended up selling the company to a new investor about 3 weeks ago.
No.
And
Congratulations.
yeah, so thank you. It was a right transaction for us at this time, because it's going to take a little longer for a product to grow. And I was able to create a transaction that was good for my current investors, so they didn't have to keep funding the company, because they're not really set up to do that, as they're a private family office, not true venture funds, and find an investor partner that could fund the future growth of the business, and allow my shareholders to get a good return on their capital.
Yep. And did you stay in on the cap table?
Yes. So the new structure of the deal is, I'm still heavily incented to be successful with the business, which is great. So it's kind of a reset. Honestly, it's kind of a reset for future growth, is the way I look at it. And it's kind of a win for all parties involved.
If you were to start up today with plenty of funding, would you go into your industry?
I think the industry I'm in is just ripe for innovation. So I love the people that we serve. And look, I can do a lot of things. My first company was in wireless smart metering. Then I spent time in the movie business, and now I'm in this technology that's impacting really the world of human resources and HR and companies. I love the space I'm in, and I think there's a lot of innovation that will take place over the next several years that will impact the workplace. And so, yeah, I feel great about it. If somebody gave me $10 million today, would I recreate what I've done today? I don't know if I would or not, but I do know that what I'm doing today is exciting, fulfilling, and I do feel like we're making a difference in the world.
Can you outline the most stressful point in your small business growth journey so our audience can learn from it?
When you don't have enough money to fund all the great ideas, it creates a lot of stress. And I feel like capital, I'm, I feel like I'm pretty good at raising capital and protecting investors and building a strategy that generates the best returns. I feel like that's something I've learned how to do over the years. At the same time, you never have enough money.
Mm.
And my team, I've got a great team of people. But I want to hire more people. And I wanted more salespeople. I wanted more marketing resources. I wanted more product development. But in the market that we were in, the timing of just kind of when we started this company and COVID and all those things, I think a lot of venture businesses and the mindset of investors was around more capital efficient businesses. And so, my stress points really relate to me wanting to do more and not having enough resources to do it
Yeah.
because I believe in what we've done. And so if I had $20 million today, for example, to spend on marketing or growth, I mean, I would know exactly what to do with that money, but I don't have it. So we're having to grow at a more incremental pace. And that's probably prudent and sound, but it's not as fun, not as much fun.
Have you put the business case forward to accelerate that marketing through funding with the LTV to CAC ratio that I mentioned before? Like,
Yeah, I have, but I don't know. We're having this call at the beginning of 2024. 2023 in general was just a very, very tough year for excess funding. So I think it's a little bit just a product of, like I built a plan that proved that every sales rep I hired would create $12 million of equity value within 6 months. So if you know that to be true, then when you just hire a bunch of sales reps as fast as possible to go sell your product.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So you spend, whatever, a few $100,000 hiring a really good sales rep, but you get $12 million of equity value.
Yep. Hmm.
But, you know, it it's in today's market, I just think that's a tough thing to pull off in today's market. So we're fine. We're growing incrementally. We've got a great investor group. They're funding our incremental growth, and we're going to keep going this way until we get enough. So our ARR gets high enough to be able to have enough proof points to say, hey, no, this is the market we're going after.
Yep. Typical entrepreneur. You want to grow faster.
That's right. I do, because you don't want to miss it, right? I mean, I feel like we had a product that a lot of competitors we have a new product. And so it does things that a lot of traditional products don't do. But it's such a great idea that I'm sure other people are going to be like, hey, let's go do that too, And so I don't think they can, replicate exactly what we've done because it's kind of hard and challenging, but they can build something similar. I mean, and that happens every day in the world of, software and technology.
Absolutely. And we've written a ebook called The Marketing Funding Flywheel, talking about that LTV to CAC ratio that I've been mentioning. The optimal range is 3.1 to 5.1. So lifetime value of 3, that's lifetime gross profit value, which is pretty much sales for a SaaS business. But a non-SaaS business, what your gross profit is over the lifetime of an average customer, and that ratio to the customer acquisition cost should be 3 to 1 or no higher than 5 to 1. And if you're above 5 to 1, you're just leaving money on the table because you can grow profitably. If you're below 3, you're getting too close to break even, obviously. We'll link through that in the show notes so the audience can read up a bit about what you and I are talking around that. Very
Oh,
powerful.
that'd be great.
Yeah, very
Yeah,
powerful
I'd love
to justify, well, why aren't we putting fuel on the fire? This thing is a money-making machine.
that's right. I would love to read that.
Yeah, I'll shoot it through.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I also think the environment that you're in makes a difference, and it's just it has been a tough environment. But I'm very optimistic about where the economy is going. I'm very optimistic about future funding. I'm optimistic about kind of the world of innovation changing. I just think we're not out of the woods yet, but I think later in 2024, the summer, the fall, I think when interest rates particularly start, dropping, I think we're going to see a return to a little more robust environment relative to
Yeah,
capital for growth.
yeah, totally agree. What area in business do you feel you've had to work on the most to add the greatest value?
customer success is a really important part of any SaaS business. It is so hard to get a client with a new product, especially if you're selling to enterprise level clients. I don't You want that customer success part of your business to be excellent in what they do. And oftentimes as a entrepreneur or business person, we'll go sell the deal and turn it over to our people and just hope that it gets executed well. I have found that if you don't have really, really good people in that customer success uh, department day one, then you're putting your work at risk. And so, we're fortunate. We've hired very well in that area, and our team is great. We have to scale it up. As we grow, obviously we have to scale it up. But I would say don't overlook that part of your business and prepare for success. And by the way, if you don't already have that in place and you win a big client, you're too late. You really need to be prepared when you win to serve that client in an exceptional way, because you get one chance at a first impression. You get one chance at delivering the product the way that you sold it and all those things.
That's right. As Will Rogers said, you don't get a second chance to make a first impression. And I think a lot of people miss that. The onboarding of customers or clients, if you invest in that, your retention rate, particularly relevant for SaaS businesses, just goes way up. Have you read The Challenger Sale or The Jolt Effect by Matt Dixon and Ted McKenna?
No, I've not read it. Enlighten me.
I will send those through to you. The Challenger Sale, I've only recently finished both books, but they're excellent. But Challenger Sales came out around 2011, 12. Bit of heavy reading, a lot of stats in there, which I normally like. But anyway, the second book, which came out 2022, I think, is really relevant for you, particularly because it helps B2B sales reps close more deals. So what they did when COVID hit, they had this amazing window of opportunity that all sales calls then had to go obviously online onto Zoom and Teams and whatever. So they took 2.5 million sales calls, put it through machine learning, and got all these great insights out. The headline is that 40 to 60% of qualified prospects go with a no decision, right? So not with your competitor. They just decide to not buy your solution or the competitors. They're going to stay with their status quo. Now, the traditional thinking was that that's the reason. It's just they're going to stay with the status quo, what they're used to. And their data bore out that 44% of the time that is the reason. They're just going to stick with the status quo. But 56% of the time, the reason was because they were fearful of making the wrong decision. So if you've got to put a business case forward to your boss, we need to spend X amount of dollars. They don't want to be on the hook if that thing fucks up, basically. And so sales reps have been using FOMO and FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt at that midpoint of the sales process. All they're doing is piling fear upon fear for 56% of the cases. So it's about disarming their concerns and their fears. You can use that from with guarantees and changing contracts, etc. There's a whole lot of great tips in that book. So I think that'll be really relevant for your team.
Oh, that'd be great. I agree conceptually with everything you just said, or I've seen that actually happen, and so I'm real excited to view those statistics.
Awesome. I'll shoot them through. What have you enjoyed the least about managing fast growth?
Yeah, I think you're either kind of born to do this or not. So the stress points for me it really relates back to my people. It really relates to not to having to make hard decisions just because of capital deficiency or some other reason that is a valid reason. But I never want to be accused of not giving one of my employees the tools and resources they need to be successful. And so when I can't do that in a small business, and it happens at times, right? Sometimes you just can't do everything, right? That probably disappoints me the most.
Yep.
So I want them to have what they need all the time. And I don't like pausing. I don't like stopping. I don't like taking a minute. I like to go. And it's just how I was made. It's who I am. It's that achiever, founder, dominant behavior in me. And, I really know I'm going to have a hard time slowing down in life when I don't have a company to build and grow.
Yeah,
I don't know what to do other than do what I do. So
I'm right there with you. What do you love most about growing a small business?
I, the people, I mean, I just meeting new people, pitching new ideas, the excitement. I enjoy innovation. And so if I had a small business that really, was providing more of a service or, kind of a traditional product, I don't know that I would enjoy it very much, honestly. What I really enjoy is innovation and building new things that solve people's problems in a different way. And so in my world, when I think of what I enjoy about a small business, it's really what I enjoy about a innovative small technology company. And it's really the ability to just uh, create something new to solve a problem that's been around for a long time, and to just to see the people's faces when they experience it. That's just an awesome feeling.
What has been the biggest mindset shift for you in your small business growth journey?
Well, I have a mindset that I've developed, I think, really early on in my life, that all things are possible. And it is the mindset that I believe you have to have if you're going to build a disruptive company. And so I always believe that everything's possible when I start any conversation. It's just a matter of how you do it. And so I think when you start with that framework and that belief, you don't really get discouraged about, challenges or obstacles, because you're always looking for the solution or the answer to the problem, or you're coming up with a new method or a new way. I just, I just believe everything's possible.
The number one habit you think a small business owner needs to develop and maintain?
Well, I think you have to take care of yourself personally, because there have been times in my journey where I was not investing in myself during that process, not working out, not spending enough time with my family, not eating well. And I think if you want to, it's just like being an athlete, right? If you want to perform at your best, you have to take care of yourself. And so from a habit standpoint, exercise, I put exercising, working out, even having those, times away from the business on a regular basis are really important. They help you think, and you got to be healthy. You want to have the mindset that I believe if you're a healthy person, that your company will be healthy.
Yep, totally agree. Now, with the first tech business, the Wi-Fi business, how big did you get the team? Rough number of FTE?
Yeah, so it's actually a cellular. It started as a cellular smart metering business, and we had 130 employees, I think, at our height. But I also had 50. I had 50 outsourced developers in India, and that were also supporting our team. So it was a pretty big company. But we had, we built the business from zero, starting a 1,200 square foot house across the street from a Mexican restaurant where I ate lunch every day. Talking about good personal habits. To when I sold it, we had 500 million in backlog. And we serve out of, I think we had over 250 utility clients throughout the world, and 7 of the top 10 utilities in the United States. So it was we grew it into a really, really big business. And, we sold it to a really big company, a multi-billion-dollar public entity. And, it was an awesome business. But I will tell you, I told my employees this when we sold the company. I said, we don't realize today how rare it is to go from 0 to 100, because we sold it for 100 million. I said, to go from 0 to 100 is really a rare feat. And what I was telling them was, congratulations on all your work, because, while we've enjoyed this and it's just kind of happened and we naturally think this is life, it's not life. It is hard. And when you start from 0, it is a tough journey.
Are you a small business owner? You know that getting recruitment right can make or break your team's success. Just one mishire can cost your business up to 27 times their salary. Finding and retaining top talent is a challenge, especially in today's competitive market. That's where our Ultimate Recruitment Toolkit comes in. Over 10 intensive days, our online course is designed specifically for small business owners like you. We'll We'll walk you through the process of sourcing and securing A players for your team. Here's what you'll gain. Learn the proven strategies to pinpoint and attract the best talent in your industry. Access our comprehensive playbook filled with templates and tools tailored to fit your business needs, and apply the resources right away to enhance your recruitment process and streamline hiring. Invest in your business's success by helping your management team become effective recruiters. Supercharge your hiring process today with the Ultimate Recruitment Toolkit, available at growasmallbusiness.com.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about the number in that business, because I think the next question is really perfect for you to answer, which is, can you talk to how you've added people to the team, some wins, mistakes, and advice for those listening?
Yeah, absolutely. So even in this business where my job is to help people hire the right people, I've made hiring mistakes. Okay. You're always going to make hiring mistakes. And so I will share with you, I was taught this from another unicorn founder or unicorn CEO in the HR space. And it was really valuable for me. So number one, I'm always looking to learn, right? And so anytime I can talk to mentors or people who have done something well, I want to learn from them. And so this particular CEO of a unicorn company in our space, I told him I was having some challenges around the sales side because I'd hired a CRO early in the life of our company. And he pointed out to me, he said, Stephen, if I was you, you're the best salesperson for your business. And he said, and he was just being honest with me. He said, Stephen, you made a mistake. You hired a CRO too early. And he said, until your business reaches 2 million ARR or some scalable number, you need to be the front. You need to own it. And that was great advice for me. So I don't have a CRO now. I'm the chief salesperson. And I think that's the right message.
Yeah. What are some of the things you recommend to building a sustainable and kick-ass culture to help with the growth?
I think you got to have fun. So I think you got to take moments to celebrate success, to make your people feel valued. Building a company's hard work. Take time to thank your employees, your people, and just, that's the best advice I could give someone. I mean, celebrate your successes, because you don't know how long it is before you get to the next one. So when you have a good one, do something for the team.
Yeah, I'm shit house at celebrating with my team. So I've actually got to put things in place for me to remember to celebrate rather than going, right, let's go. There's the next mountain. Let's keep climbing.
That's right.
Tell the audience how you've handled balance.
I'm not great at it, but I do. I mean, family is extremely important to me. And I will say that I don't apologize for putting family events in the middle of my work life. And so I believe in today's world that you got to have a healthy home life as well as a healthy work life. So I'll give you an example. We have unlimited vacation days at GoodJob. Okay. I don't even know how much, we don't keep track of vacation. I tell people, if you need to take a day or you need to take time off to go be with your kid or whatever, you go do that. Nobody's keeping track. Anybody that's in a small business knows you work 24/7. Okay. Take the time off that you need to take off.
And how much professional development have you invested in yourself?
Not enough, but I'm working on that. So actually, I chose last year. I went to a day. I literally, what a great question. So last year, I felt like I'd underdeveloped in me, underinvested in me. And a good friend of mine, he's an author named John Gordon, was having a day with Pat Lencioni and John Gordon, and they're really good friends and great business leaders and people I draw from often.
That's great. He wrote 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, didn't he?
That's right. He sure did. And I was an early adopter of all of his teachings and all of his work. So last year I took one day. I told my wife, I told my work people, do not bother me today. I'm taking one day and I'm going to invest in myself. And I went to this conference with John and Pat and literally just learned for a day. And, it was awesome. I learned some great things from that time together, and it energized me. And I felt like I could be a better leader when I got back to the office.
Yeah, great. Have you had mentors or coaches along the way?
I have. I've been blessed with a great group of mentors. My favorite mentor, a guy named John Palmer, helped me build my first company. He was the former ambassador to Portugal for the United States. He was a very successful entrepreneur in the wireless space. He invented, most of your listeners probably don't even know what a pager is, but his company invented the paging technology that was called SkyTel and then ultimately sold to a company called WorldCom. And so John really shepherded me in my first company, and he helped me for a period of 10 years. I probably talked to him every day for 10 years, and he was retired, and he just really was there to help me. And I can't imagine a journey without a mentor. In today's world, I really lean on I've been a longtime member of YPO, and I think 18 years, Young Presidents Organization. And I have a really, really strong forum group, 8 CEOs, and that they serve as my personal board of directors and really, guide me today and help me.
And do you have a formal board of directors? I assume with investors in you would.
I did when I sold the company three weeks ago. My largest investors made up my board. But they were also helpful with the business. They were also customers of the business, which was great. So I was able to get direct feedback from my board about how well we were doing from a product standpoint.
Yep.
And so I believe it's important to have that governance, particularly if you take other people's money. I'm just a big believer in having governance. Like the way we do our financials, like just for an example, just a best practice. So you didn't ask me this, but I'll tell you this. So, like I don't touch our financials, right? So I have a third party that does all of our books. I never, they produce all the numbers, do everything, have access to all the bank accounts and all those things. And I just think as a founder, if you have the ability to do that, it's really great because you can focus on growing the business and then have someone else do all the books and the financials and all those things.
Yeah, reporting on the historicals, and they're accurate, and the board's got confidence in them as well. Yeah,
right. And I'm not in there, changing the numbers and all that kind of stuff. I just feel like it's important to have that third party.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, as Drucker said, the business has only two functions that create value. It's marketing and innovation. Everything else is a cost. I slightly disagree with him on that. I mean, he was obviously a management guru, but for one, I think innovation is part of marketing, it's part of product. But my belief is that the two main growth levers are marketing and people, getting the right people on the bus, obviously A players, and managing them and leading them well. So now you've exited, well, technically 2 businesses, pretty much. Any advice for our audience thinking of exiting one day?
I think this is what I would say about that. I think you prepare for your exit along the way. It's the most important thing you can do. And so it's not always possible to have literally the absolute best practices in everything that you do. But I really do think that you need to, particularly if you take other people's money, they want to get a return on that money, that you need to be thinking about how you're going to ultimately exit this business all the time. Okay. Not that you're driving towards that exit every day. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that you're prepared so that if the opportunity comes along to sell your company or to take advantage of an opportunity to create value for your shareholders, you're ready. And so I just, my advice is to never lose sight of the best practices, like, keeping accurate files, having good financials, having up-to-date records and all those things. Be prepared if somebody comes knocking on your door and says, hey, I'd like to, buy your business. Because if you can't produce that stuff quickly, they're going to say, oh, you're not a good business.
Yeah, I mentioned to you before we hit record, yesterday I recorded John Morello, the author of Built to Sell, The Automatic Customer and The Art of Selling Your Business. And he's got a great podcast series, which I'm going to send through to you. And those 3 books called the Built to Sell Radio. Recorded John yesterday. So his episode went live 15th of April, episode 500. And he made a really good point there near the end of the cast that there's 2 main reasons, and he's done a lot of interviews, over 400 over the last 9 years, with owners that have exited their business. And the 2 main reasons are either there's a health scare, whether with you or a family member, or you get approached. And in both situations, most business owners aren't prepared to have those exit conversations with a suitor, and therefore they're on the back foot and they don't get as much because they're not as prepared. And they don't, so that's really important to make. The point you make there is to think about it and be prepared. All right, Stephen, we're on to our final 5 questions. What do you think is the hardest thing in growing a small business?
I think staying positive. And it's just so important because you're going to have ups and downs. And I just think it's just really important that, particularly as a leader of the business, not only am I positive, but that I can encourage the other people in my company to be positive. And I think that mindset just can make the difference in success and failure.
Favorite business book would just help you the most?
Good to Great.
Jim Collins. Yeah.
Yeah. Jim Collins' book really shaped the way I saw the world, particularly about getting the right people on the bus. And just that book to me taught me how to build a successful business. So I know it's old, right? I mean, it's over 20 something years old now. But what I would tell people is if they've not read that book, that they should read it.
Definitely. It's in my top 3 recommendations for sure. Any great podcasts or online learning tools you use for your own professional development?
Yeah, I think it's funny, other than yours, obviously, but I typically listen to podcasts that are referred to me by friends, honestly. Like, I don't spend a lot of time searching for podcasts to help me answer questions just for whatever reason. I'm, doing other things, but my friends send me a lot. So I've enjoyed, I actually listen to John Gordon's podcast. He's one of my author friends. He has some great tips on leadership that are good. Patrick Lencioni has a great management podcast I listen to. John Maxwell. Those are some of the leaders that I respect and admire the most. From a, fun standpoint, it's kind of random. I enjoy, listening about sports, about life, those kinds of things. But, it's really when somebody sends me a podcast and says, hey, you should listen to this, I'll listen to it.
One tool you'd recommend to help grow a small business?
Excel.
Yep, I'm a spreadsheet nerd.
I'm a spreadsheet nerd. I am too. And so, when I think about it, I guess my investment banking training taught me to be that way. Yeah. But I put everything on Excel.
Yeah, I believe small business strategic planning should always start with the numbers. Yeah.
I totally agree.
Finally, my favorite question. What would you tell yourself on day one of starting out 24 years ago in business?
You're going to sacrifice a lot to achieve success. And be prepared to make that sacrifice, because it never works out the way you think it's going to work out. Sometimes it's better, sometimes it's worse. And honestly, the degree of success and failure can be so small. And many times it's factors that you don't even control. The market influences a lot of things that can happen to you. And so I think what I would tell myself is to open your eyes. I was very naive when I got into the tech business for the very first time. And being totally candid about it, that naivety really helped me be successful because I didn't know what I didn't know. If you know what I mean? So like when somebody would tell me no, I'd be like, what are you talking about? This is the way the world is. You should know. But I would tell myself to just open your eyes. Be prepared for success and failure. It's not going to be the way you designed it to be, but I've embraced it and I love the challenge, and it's just who I am.
Right. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Stephen. Congratulations to you and the team on the growth so far in both businesses and also with the movie. I think it'd be great to have you back on in a couple of years to see how GoodJob's tracking then.
I would love to do it, Troy. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
We're getting some great iTunes reviews. For those listening, please pop over to your podcast app and leave us a review.